besties, to another vlog. In this vlog, we are once again in search of a 5-star read, but this time we have an additional bonus of solidifying T.Kingfisher as one of my favorite authors. Now, I read Sweetheart and Nettle and Bone last year. Sweetheart I gave 4 stars, Nettle and Bone I gave 5 stars. Those 2 books I read from T.Kingfisher were fantasy or cozy fantasy, but this time around I'm switching it up to reading T.Kingfisher's horror novels. I plan on reading A House with Good Bones and What Moves the Dead, and hoping that by switching it up to horror, I'll see if I like her horror novels, and if I do, we will be solidifying her as one of my favorite authors. I think I will start off with What Moves the Dead because that is a shorter book and I just want to feel accomplished on the get-go. I have high hopes for these books because if you watch my previous vlog where I was trying to get a 5-star read of the year, that ended on a bit of a downer note because Murderbot was just fine. So I'm hoping to switch from sci-fi to horror. We can get a win here. So yeah, let's just get started with reading What Moves the Dead, and I'll check in once I am done with the book. Okay guys, I have an update on What Moves the Dead. I finished reading this book last night, but before I get into my review, I just want to tell you what this book is about. So this book is about a retired soldier who receives word from a family friend that she's ill and to come and pay her a visit. What Moves the Dead is based on that Edgar Allan Poe poem about the fall of the House of Usher. I know that there's a TV show that came out, maybe it was on Netflix or maybe it was on Amazon Prime, about the fall of the House of Usher, but I don't know the poem nor have I seen the show, so I was truly going into this blind. So basically what this book is about is that Alice Easton hears that a family friend is dying, and so she runs to the family's ancestral home in, I want to say this is England or London somewhere, where they discover that there is this fungus that is infecting the people, the animals, and the land. And that's not a spoiler. It's in the blurb of the book. And I finished this book last night, and when I picked it up I had high hopes because I love Sweetheart and Nettle and Bone by T.Kingfisher, so I decided to give her horror books a chance. But unfortunately for me, I thought this book was just fine. I think my problem is that since I have read Ghost Eaters, and that was another fungus mushroom problem, that kind of spoiled the whole plant as the enemy or a plant as the cause or reason for the horror. I just think that it's kind of stupid. While I was reading this book, I wasn't scared for a minute, and this book is really short, so I'm just gonna give T.Kingfisher the benefit of the doubt that because she didn't have a lot of pages to work with and the original source material is so short. I mean, obviously she couldn't write like a 300-page book about it. I mean, this book was about 150-ish pages, but all I want to say is that this is just fine. It was just fine. So the next one I plan on picking up is A House with Good Bones, and I hope that that one is a bit better, and it is about 100 pages longer than What Moves the Dead. Let me start the book and then I will update you along the way. Okay guys, I have finished A House with Good Bones and it was just fine. I sound like a broken record at this point. So A House with Good Bones starts with our main character Sam, and she's going to pay her mother a rare visit. Her mother lives in South Carolina, or one of the Carolinas, I believe. So Sam's mom name is Edith, and Edith's mother they refer to her as Grandma. This grandmother has passed away quite some time ago. When Sam comes to pay her mother a visit, she can tell that her mom is not acting quite right. Along the way that we realize the house is being haunted by the grandmother. So along the way of the story, we're trying to figure out how is the grandmother haunting the house and how is magic behind all the hauntings. And again, like I said, it's just fine. I felt like this book wasn't spooky ooky in any kind of way. I like the story. I think that this was better than What Moves the Dead, and T.Kingfisher had more pages to kind of play around with. I think this book was almost twice as long as What Moves the Dead. There was nothing wrong with the writing. The story was fine. Like I said, I feel like a broken record. It was just fine. I think my issue is that I've realized that maybe T.Kingfisher's horror novels is not for me. And that's what I was planning on reading for this entire vlog. I have read Sweetheart, I have read Nettle and Bone, and those are fantasy or cozy fantasies. So I was trying to switch it up by reading horror. But I think I might not be a horror girly. To not end this vlog on a bit of a downer, I have decided to pick up a different T.Kingfisher book, and that is Paladin's Grace. I believe Paladin's Grace that has showed up a little bit in Sword Heart, or I might be wrong there, but that is a fantasy novel. So I'm going to pick that one up and hope that it's better than just fine. Again, I just want to emphasize, I don't think that there was anything wrong with What Moves the Dead. I don't think there's anything wrong with A House of Bones. The story was just fine. So I'm going to go pick up something where I can truly escape and be in Fantasyland. Let me start reading Paladin's Grace tonight and then see how long that takes me to read. I think that book is almost like 400 or maybe 500 pages, so that might take me a couple days to finish. I do have the audiobook, so that will be helping, and then I do have a half day at work tomorrow. I took a half day because I'm planning on getting my hair done. If you can tell, I do have some bit of like lighter bits in my hair. It had been balayaged at one point, but my hair has grown out quite a bit, and probably in the back you can maybe tell a little bit better that the hair has grown out quite a bit. So I need to get this redone and bring up the balayage. So I'm excited to do that tomorrow, but because I have a lot of hair and because I have such long hair, I expect I will be sitting in my hairstylist chair for maybe at least 3 hours, and I'll check in tomorrow with Paladin's Grace. I wish I could be you right now, relaxing. You're just chillaxing away. Thank you. I meant to check in with you guys a lot earlier when I was reading Paladin's Grace. I also meant to check in with you guys after I got my hair done, but as you can see, we have blonded. Before, you could definitely tell that my roots were like down to here, so I had my hairstylist move it all the way up, and so we're looking a lot blonder on the top here, and then also moved it up so it doesn't look so bad. I mean, I don't want it to be all the way up into my head because then I feel like it looks ugly when it grows out, and you could definitely tell that I don't want that like line of highlights. But yeah, I feel like we blonded it quite a bit, and I also curled it this morning. But anyway, that's not the point. I meant to check in and update you guys on Paladin's Grace when I was halfway through the book, but I've actually finished the book now. So in this book, we have a paladin. His name is Stephen. His god has died. I think his god is like the god of steel. And once your god dies in this world, this book is set in the same world as Sword Heart. But once your god dies in this world, it's like you lose a part of yourself and you lose like a part of your soul is the best way I could think of to describe it. Him and his fellow paladins are struggling with the loss of their god. With their god being gone, there's this thing where they can go berserk, which basically means if they get in a heightened sense of emotion, they will kind of go insane and they won't realize what they're doing. Kind of imagine it as like hulking out, where he'll just go on this raging rampage and will possibly kill a ton of people, but won't know or not be able to control that happening. So in the beginning of this book, we are meeting Stephen. I think he's helping someone or doing some kind of job. He runs across our other main character, Grace, and she is running away from the Motherhood, which is like a different religion. They're kind of like tough guys. She's run away from them because she grabbed like a flower or something like that from her graveyard, and they're running after her. So they pretend to be making out in a random alleyway for the Motherhood to kind of just like leave them alone. And then that's where we kind of get these two starting to come together as friends and then later as lovers. Grace is a perfumer and she has her best friend Marguerite, and they live in the same building. Grace mixes up a ton of like perfumes and she has a really good sense of smell. Stephen and Grace instantly, it's kind of like a little bit insta-lovey, but I was okay with it. They have feelings for each other. The big plot in this book is that the prince has been poisoned, and because Grace has given perfume to this prince before, the Motherhood and like the law in this land are thinking that Grace is the one that attempted to poison the prince, and so she has to go to trial over it. Stephen really reminded me of Sarkis, and then Grace really reminded me of, I can't remember her name, but the female main character in Sword Heart. I think that switching up genres from T.Kingfisher's horror to her fantasy, I wouldn't call Paladin's Grace a cozy fantasy by any means. I think it's more so of a fantasy because the stakes are higher. This book did end, I don't want to say cliffhanger because not every single plot was addressed, and it does lead you interested to go into the second book because this is a series, and I am interested in reading the second book. But I gave this book 4 stars because I enjoyed my time thoroughly with this book. I did not expect this book to have spiciness between Stephen and Grace, and I wasn't entirely sure going into this book if it was cozy fantasy or if it was just fantasy, but it is fantasy like I mentioned before. But the big selling point of this book is if you like Sword Heart, you will like Paladin's Grace because it's set in the same world and the characters feel very familiar to the ones in Sword Heart. So I'm really glad I picked this one up. I think this entire experiment has taught me that I am not a fan of T.Kingfisher's horror. I am more so a fan of her cozy novels. And it's not just like I didn't like her horror novels. I think it's just fine. That's it. Thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe and like and hit that notification bell so you can stay notified for when I upload. There is another video that I am planning to upload next week that I put a lot of work into. And so I want you guys to stay tuned for that. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.